Hey guys, welcome. So, as advertised in the title, today's yin class is designed for the days that you're feeling a little bit more anxious. I tend to find in general yoga is really helpful for that for me, but we can choose certain styles, certain poses, certain ways of breathing that will really target that on those days. I also say that what works for one person doesn't always work for another. So it's really good to try different things, listen to your body, your mind, your breath to know which poses are really helpful and supportive when you need that or settling from the anxiety, and which poses or what styles of yoga might tend to kind of amp that up a little bit. And that might even be different day to day. So, all right, take this as an experiment to see what might work for you and let the other pieces go. It'll be good to have some props for class today, and you can kind of make do with what you have. Something to use for a strap, like a belt or a scarf works well if you don't have a yoga strap. And then a blanket and either a bolster or a couple pillows. If you need to grab those things, do that. And then we're going to lie down and get started from there. And we're just going to jump right in with this practice. So you can grab your strap, bring your right knee in, and then go ahead, strap up. Go ahead, strap right to the heel of your foot. So a little different than you might be used to in this pose where we often go to the ball of the foot. So go right to the heel instead. And then you can stretch your left leg out. So your strap might be really long and your leg might be way forward. You might have a little bend in your knee, right? Find the place that works for you sensation wise, meaning that there is sensation, but there's no strain, there's no pain. You can somewhat comfortably hold the leg there. And then go ahead, walk your hands up the strap until your arms are straight, but your shoulders can still soften back to the mat. Sometimes it even helps here just to wrap your hands once around so your hands aren't and your arms aren't really having to work hard to do that. You might close your eyes or just soften your gaze. And then just let your attention start to shift to your breath. And notice where it's at to start with. Right? Often, if we're feeling a little bit more anxious, the breath can be shorter or a little more up in the chest. It's not uncommon when we're feeling like that for the inhale to feel like it's more dominant than the exhale. Right? So just notice. Good. And then I'm going to invite you here as we start just to see if you can find balance with your inhale and exhale. For me, often it helps to count when I'm doing this, right? So inhale 4, exhale 4, or inhale 5, whatever the count is. But just so you're really starting to feel what that even breath feels like. Right? And don't push it, don't force it. Just let it start to move in that direction. Right? And as you work with your breath, just let your arms be heavy. Feel the weight of your arms, just pull the heel down. And it's this really intentional root of the heel down towards the thigh bone, right? Grounding the thighs into the pelvis can be really nice for the nervous system. And let's just take a few more breaths here. And then nice and slow, release your strap, bend your knee, place your foot down, and then just go ahead, switch sides. So bring the left leg in, strap up your heel, just get really intentional with that one little shift. So it's just nice to feel the thigh bone root. And then you can stretch your right leg long. Right? You could always keep it a little bit bent if that feels better for sensation. And again, just find that place where the strap is short enough that your arms are straight, right? And so that might be longer if the leg's further away. That's fine. But you just don't want to have to really effort to hold the strap, right? Your arms don't want to work. We're trying to release that sensation of doing. Right? Eyes soft or closed. And I know for me, I tend towards anxiety. But sometimes when I'm feeling that way, closing the eyes altogether can feel a little too much, right? I need to ease into that. And so just notice what works for you. Find your steady breath. Right? So just meeting ourselves where we're at. We're trying to make big, huge shifts, but just letting the body slowly transition, even breath. And this pose, our first pose here, we're getting the body into a forward fold shape. Doesn't always feel like it because we're lying down, right? We're creating that hinge at the hips. But in a way, again, that meets you where you're at. Sometimes a really big seated forward fold, if we're feeling anxious, can just make us antsier. Right? So we're finding the places that just start to settle, start to ease it in. And so as you let the weight of your arms traction your heel down, release any effort in your legs. I could feel I was holding a little bit through my right leg, the one down on the ground. And with each exhale, just let the weight of your body settle back. Back of your head back, shoulders back. So there's just this breath by breath softening of all those little places that are holding on. Right? We know that that anxious feeling we can get in our mind really translates to what we're holding in our bodies. Some of us, we feel it in our chest. Sometimes we feel it in the belly. Sometimes we hold it in other right, areas of the body and tissue. And just notice where it needs to unwind a little more. And then let's just take a few more breaths on this side. And then you can release, bend your knee. And you can set your strap off to the side. And then go ahead and bring both knees in. Well, bend both knees, set your feet to the ground. And then just take a really nice, slow windshield wiper of your knees side to side. Move with your breath. Right? Not a lot of effort. We're not trying to, up the engagement in between poses, but just get a little movement through the joints in between. Okay. And then I would say have one or two of your pillows or your bolster over on the left side of your mat. And then you're going to bring your right knee in, stretch your left leg long, and then go ahead, bring your knee across your body to twist. Right? And that's where that support of the blanket or pillow or bolster, whatever you have, might be really nice there. You can bring your right arm out to the side. And again, just eyes heavy or eyes closed. And turn your head and neck wherever it feels best to you. Sometimes it feels good to turn towards your right arm. You get a little bit more twist through the neck. You might turn towards the left and let it relax a little more, or even just keep it at center. And then just notice where your breath is here. And especially with twists, we can get that little bit of compression through the belly. So I just want to make sure that we're staying soft enough and open enough, right? Meaning the twist isn't really shutting us down, so that there's room for breath. And just keep coming back to that even inhale, even exhale. It can be really nice to give the mind something to do when we're feeling a little bit more anxious, right? So that it stops maybe some of the monkey mind, the chatter that's going on, right? Sometimes the anxiety comes from one specific thing that we're ruminating on. Sometimes it just comes for no apparent reason at all. And so we're giving the mind, a different job, giving it something specific to focus on that you can keep coming back to. Right? And so when you notice it drifting away to whatever those thoughts are, spinning sometimes, just notice it. Let go of the judgment that it's spinning, and just notice that it is. And then come back to the breath. And some days it feels like we're doing that over and over and over again throughout the practice or throughout your day. And that's fine, that's part of the practice. That's how we begin to train the mind to find that quieter spot when it needs it. And each time we bring it back to breath. And let's just take a few more breaths here. And then when you're ready, no hurry, ease out. You can come back to center. I often find it nice just to bring both knees into the chest and take a really gentle, slow rock side to side. For me, there's always this nice feeling of the thighs against the belly that is soothing and gets us into that same forward fold position, but just a different version. Okay. And then if you were using that support, pillows, bolsters, whatever you've got, you can slide that over to the other side of your mat. And then bring your left knee and stretch your right leg out. And then twist. You might need some different support side to side. Right, that's fine. Take a moment to set up where you'll feel really comfortable. It doesn't mean there's not sensation, but that your body can soften into that support. Eyes soft or closed. And with each exhale, body a little bit heavier. And so twist can, right, like I said, can be, every pose is going to affect us differently different days, can be really helpful for finding that energetic balance in our body. Right? We've got that yang side that's the fire and the heat and the movement. And for me, I find that that's often where this feeling of anxiety lives. So we're like too much yang, too much heat, too much going. We want to balance out with the yin side of our body, the place that feels cool and grounded and soft. And so yin practices by nature, helping to balance that out. But twists in general can find that balance energetically within the body as well. And you can think about this as just one tool, right? There's some days we need the opposite. We need to really burn off some of that energy, use a little heat to do that. Other days we need this, the calm, the cool, the quiet of a yin practice that's primarily twists and forward folds. And so the great thing is really in our practice to take the time to notice how it affects you so that you have these tools to come back to. Right? What days, what situations, what emotions, where do you need to find that balance? And then what tools do you have to do it? Sometimes it's just the simple tool of breathing, of finding a rhythm that brings you balance. And so, like we did on the first side, just make sure there's enough room for breath here. And that little bit of compression that the twist bring can be so nice on the abdomen, but too much can start to feel constricting, and then the breath gets shorter. Right? And since when we're feeling anxious, there's already a tendency for that, it's nice to just let there be a little bit more space. And let's take a few more breaths on this side. And then unwind again. You can bring both knees into your chest. Take a little movement or a little rock. And we're going to come all the way up to sitting. So just move slowly. You can roll to one side. Help yourself up. And then we're going to take a couple of seated postures. So if you like the height of a blanket underneath you, this can be really nice, just especially if the hips are a little less flexible. You can sit up right on the edge of your blanket. Okay, and then soles of your feet together, knees out wide for butterfly. And there's a few options here, especially if the hips or the knees feel like they're really high, then you can slide blocks or even pillows underneath your knees and your thighs. Right? And then you might just sit upright and that's your pose. Right? We don't want to compress the body too much if the hips aren't wanting to open. Right? You could also then stack if you have a little bit more room to come forward. Sometimes the tall end of the bolster, if you have one, works. You can stack up a few blocks, pillows, whatever you have, we make do, especially when we're practicing at home. And then to take your forward fold from there. And just ease in. Where is there sensation? But no strain. Right? We don't want to push against it. You want to find enough support that it feels like the body can soften into the pose. If possible, see if there's somewhere your head can rest. Or you might just let your chin soften towards your chest if that feels okay for your neck. Right? If your head's resting, you can turn it to one side. And then as you get settled in here, really let the weight of your hips and your sitting bones anchor to the ground. Right? So as we change positions from lying down to seated, just finding that new foundation. As we bring attention there, we can let the energy start to settle down to that base, to the root, the place that maybe we feel a little bit more connected and grounded. And it's just about bringing the energy there and getting it out again of the thoughts in the mind that might be a little bit more swirling. And then check in with your breath. And if it works here, see if you can start to lengthen out the exhale now just a little bit. Right, so we spent a little bit of time just finding the balance in the breath. And now letting the breath come just a little bit longer with your exhale. Right, so if you're inhaling to a count of 4, you can exhale 5 or even 6. And that starts to activate the parasympathetic nervous system, right? The rest and digest mode, as opposed to living in fight or flight, which is usually where we are when we're feeling anxious. And just like in the twist, make sure there's enough room for the breath. And that might even feel like bringing the breath a little bit more into the sides of the body or into the back of the body so that your breath can still feel full. And then just take a few more breaths here. And you can ease your way back up. And if you're using pillows or bolster, go ahead and set it over to the right side of your mat. You can have your blocks there if you have them. I'm going to slide off of my blanket for this next one, but keep it here to come back to. And then bring your left leg back and your right shin a little bit more parallel, deer pose. And you can play here with angles of hips and knees, right? Heels coming in a little closer or further away. Find what works best for hips, knees, ankles, all of that. And then we're going to twist over to your right. So you can have the bolster all the way down. You could also slide a block underneath it if you want just a little bit more incline for support. Play with that once you come in. Right, and then a hand on either side of your pillows or your bolster. And then press just a little bit more into your right hand so that your ribs roll. And then come all the way down onto that support. Right, you could let your head turn in the same direction that your knees are, or you can turn it back towards whatever's behind you. It just depends on where your neck wants to be. And then let the weight of your upper body really start to settle down into that support. Good. Now go ahead and let your legs feel really heavy. So that's going to be really the root here. And that back hip is lifting up. So we're not going to be grounding through both sitting bones, but still trying to work to find that heaviness in the lower half of the body. And check in with breath. And just allow your body to soften into the twist with your breath. Right, so that there's nothing to do. This can be sometimes a shift when we're feeling a little bit more anxious because our mind wants to get things done. It's to check off the to-do list. But that kind of getting things done can often feel really frazzled. And so often taking time like this to reset, to let go of the need to get things done, to do the busyness, can help us feel a little bit more settled. And it may not even have to be a whole practice. It might just be getting on your mat for one or two poses. to feel into what your body needs now, right at that time. And take just a few minutes to do that. And a few more breaths on this side. So slowly help yourself back up. And then just bring the soles of your feet together again. Take butterfly at the center and give yourself a couple of breaths. Right, so physically the spine can come back to center, but also just noticing the effects of the pose. What pieces of the practice really help? What are the pieces that may or may not be landing all that well today? And then you know what works and what doesn't. Okay, and then you can take your prop setup over to the other side. Stack up as much or as little as you need. And then right leg back, left shin a little bit more parallel. And maybe not, maybe the heel's coming in a little bit more. You play with the angles of your joints. And then turn your upper body hand on either side of your support. I think it's always nice just to give that little extra press through your left hand so that your ribs roll into the twist. Right, then let go, fold forward. Turn your head whichever direction feels right on this side. Soften the weight of your legs. And just really let your body go into that support. Eyes soft or closed. And see if you can find those longer exhale breaths here. And twist, it can be interesting to notice too if one side feels more stimulating, one side feels more calming, or both might already feel even. And you can also notice in your mind, your body, your breath. In the longer holds, in the quiet places, are things starting to settle? Or is there a little bit of a resistance? Sometimes it feels like those anxious thoughts have a mind of their own and they're not ready to let go and settle into the quiet. It's fine. Just notice that. Sometimes the benefits of our practice show up later, or it might just even be this cumulative effect over time of settling through the nervous system so that the anxiety gets less and less, or we learn the tools that we have to navigate it. So let's take a few more breaths on this side. It's a little slower, steadier, those longer exhales if it feels good. And just start to help yourself back up. And like we did after the first side, soles of your feet together, knees out wide. Just notice. Notice the after effect of the pose. Notice if there's more room for breath after the twist. And then help your knees together. And we're going to set up one more forward fold. So if you want to come back up onto your blanket for a little support, if that feels good, do that. And then I like to take my feet here, maybe just about hip width, or a couple of fists in between, so they're not having to work to hold into center. The legs can just relax. And then we'll set up the forward fold here, so lots of options again. You might use tall end of your bolster or some pillows. And if just sitting down like this with legs out long brings up a lot of sensation, you could stay upright. If you're by a wall, you could always do this just with your back to the wall so that there's not a lot of effort. You might stack up your blocks or your bolster and your blocks. Lots of options. Take a moment to get settled in. And find the amount of forward fold that works for you today. And like we did before, as you get settled in, just take a moment and let the sitting bones really get heavy. Feel that firm connection. Soften the weight of your upper body down onto that support. Let your head go. And then just like in the twist, sometimes this compression in the belly, which can feel really soothing for the nervous system, but we may just have to work around where there's breath. Can you feel a little more into the side bodies or the back body? And that with each of those longer exhales, or just with each exhale, depending where you're at, can you really let the belly draw up and in? So there's this, again, gentle compression up and in against the abdominal organs. Just another little simple tool that may feel a little bit more soothing. Right? There's always the may and the maybe because, again, what works for one person on one day might not for someone else on a different day. Right? And a lovely thing about yin is that we have the time in the pose to really be mindful of the response in your body and your mind and your breath. To let the benefits of that particular pose really settle in. One of the things that I find comforting and soothing about forward folds when I'm feeling a little bit more anxious is it feels like it shuts out the stimuli for just that short period of time. Right? That as I fold in on the front body, that there's that quieter space, that everything's not just coming at you. And so when the mind's moving quickly, it feels like it's spinning a little bit with those thoughts. And we can create the quieter space in the body. Does that help to start to lead the mind in that direction? When the mind starts to go away, back to thoughts, invite it back into breath. Let's just take a few more breaths here. Ease your way back up. You can set your props off to the side. So instead of Shavasana today, I'm going to take this as seated meditation. If your body is craving, right, more of a traditional Shavasana and lying down, please feel free to do that. Right? If it feels nice just to stay seated, sit up on some support, then you can do that. And you take whatever cross-legged seat feels good. And as you get settled in, you can bring your hands to your thighs with your palms down. Even that can be a really simple tool just to help settle your energy. Close your eyes or soften your gaze. And again, just let the weight of your lower body settle. Can you let go of any effort, any control with the breath now and just let it be? For me, sometimes on the days where I'm feeling a little bit more anxious, lying down is a little challenging. Right? Lying down, I'm doing something like the pose, fine. But the final rest can be a little bit more challenging. And while that might be a good thing, we also don't want to push ourselves back into triggering that fight or flight. And so that Shavasana, those final rest pose, doesn't always have to be right, just lying down. You can find another resting pose or seated meditation that works well for you. So in these last few moments, I'll invite you to just follow the rhythm of your breath without having to do anything but let your attention rest there. And allow body and mind and breath to just stay in that quieter place. The same when you notice the mind start to drift away, gently invite it back. And it'll bring us out when we're ready. And then just let your breath get a little fuller. Notice where your breath is moving to now, maybe as opposed to when we started practice. And can you keep this fullness of the breath with you throughout the rest of your day or your evening? And come back to the poses all together one at a time when you need it, when it's a helpful tool. Bring your hands together at your heart. Lift heart to hands, bow in head to heart. And to finding those tools that support us in the more challenging times and the more challenging days. Thanks so much for sharing practice. Namaste.